Straight
You're now tuned into the show where you learn the discipline to show up day after day to do the work, the confidence to put yourself out there boldly and authentically, and the mental toughness to continue showing up, doing the work, putting yourself out there even when the success you've expected to achieve has yet to be achieved. And on top of all this, you get a huge dose of personal initiative. What is that? That is the go-getter energy that moves any one of us, including yourself, to go and make things happen instead of waiting for things to happen. And then we put all this together into a series of frameworks, approaches, insights, strategies, and techniques all underneath the umbrella of one unifying philosophy that is called Work on Your Game. My name is Dre Baldwin, also known as Dre All Day, and welcome to the show. And today's topic is, we are on part 3 of our 3-part mini-series, Why MAGA is Terrible for the United States of America. Before we get into this, I remind you of a couple things. First of all, my text message number down below in the description. Secondly, the link to get on my email list for free. That's workonmygame.com. Also down below in the description. And guess what else is down there? A link to Work on Your Game University. That is where you can work with me directly, have me as your direct coach, get access to all of our trainings and courses. Make sure we get your mind in the right place. We craft a clear strategy for what you're going to do moving forward, systematize the things that work, and make sure you and your processes are held accountable for full implementation with me coaching you the entire way. Go to workonyourgameuniversity.com. All those links are in the description to this episode. So let's pick up where we left off, which is, again, we're on point number 7. This is part 3 of our 3-part mini-series, Why MAGA is Terrible for the United States of America. Point number 7 is the following: undermined trust in journalism and the mainstream media. Now, if you are a listener of this show, then you have heard me many times trash what used to be journalism. Journalism is damn near dead these days. And the mainstream media, which I am not a fan of at all these days. You've heard me trash these many times. So I actually don't think it's a bad thing that Trump's presence has undermined trust in these institutions. And I do believe that his presence has helped. It's helped it. He didn't cause it, but it helped it. At the same time, people who don't like Trump, I think that they do believe this. So that's why this is a point. So this is, again, another one that I'm completely fine with. I'm completely fine with this reality that Trump's presence and MAGA's presence has undermined the trust in people who we used to call journalists, who are not doing journalism anymore. They're doing PR. And the mainstream media platforms who we used to trust for news and reporting, but because they stopped doing news and reporting, they stopped doing journalism the proper way, and they stopped being honest, we had to stop listening to them. And they set themselves up for this. Their reason for doing it is because they felt like they needed to respond to Trump in basically in kind to the way he was out there, because he was conducting himself and still conducts himself in a way that is very, very different than a traditional career politician, of which where we get most of our presidents. And when he came out and was doing things completely differently, the mainstream media didn't really know how to respond to him. And people who used to call themselves journalists and could credibly call themselves journalists, they didn't know how to respond to him. So they all decided that they were going to change their approach as a response to his thing. Was a bad thing to do. You shouldn't do that. You should never catch yourself changing your entire approach because of what somebody else is doing. Right? That's usually a bad idea strategically. And this is what the mainstream media and what the journalism industry decided to do. And in the process of doing that, because they wanted to report on Trump in a way that they felt was better informing the audience saw through it. Trump helped the audience see through it. He coined terms like fake news and helped undermine the credibility of a lot of publications who still hate him to this day for doing so. And the people who work in those organizations hate him to this day for doing so. And now we have very little trust in journalists and the mainstream media. So it wasn't Trump that did it, but his presence helped them do it. That's actually what happened. The mainstream media did this to themselves, but Trump's presence helped them do it to themselves. So he kind of just kicked away the chair. They put the rope around their necks. So the mainstream media, again, these people used to be called journalists. They exposed themselves more than Donald Trump exposed them. And at the same time, true to the theme of the series, I understand why some people are pissed off about this, because it undermined a whole lot of people who built their careers doing what we used to call journalism and working in the mainstream media, which used to have a monopoly on attention and information when it came to news and current events. If you wanted to get news and current events before individual platforms and social media popped up and platforms like podcasting came about and YouTube, etc., you had to go to the mainstream media to get the news. If you didn't go there, you didn't know what was happening, if you really needed to know. And Donald Trump did not invent the internet. He did not invent social media. He did not invent podcasting. He's not the one who democratized the sharing of information and the conversation around current events. He did not do that. All he did was look at it. He learned how to exploit it and show everyone how untrustworthy the mainstream media was. And he used social media and individual platforms to prove it. That's all he did. Again, mainstream media did this to themselves. If they had just continued to do their business as usual in a normal way when Donald Trump came around, They would not have drawn the ire and the attention of Trump, and nor would they have gotten the blowback that they got based on Trump encouraging his fans and others to no longer trust the mainstream media. Their response to him led to his response to them, which led to the outcome. But it wasn't him starting it, they started it. That's my assertion. Again, had the mainstream media just done their job normally, he would not have such an opening through which to attack them. They created the opening by the way they came at him. So Trump basically counterpunched the mainstream media and he caught him. All right, they created the opening by the decisions that they made and how they reported on him when he decided to get into politics. They made some decisions to do things that were outside of their character, and they ended up playing themselves. And they were very open about doing things outside of their character and just going against the grain. Now, the mainstream media is paying a price for that. They were losing trust, they're losing credibility, and in the process, they're losing money. This is what happens. So this point is that many people don't like that this happened. I respect and understand that there are many people that don't like that this is the outcome. While at the same time, I'll let you know why it happened. All right. The reason that, and I'm also letting you know that I like that it happened because, again, the mainstream media is to blame for this. Donald Trump is not to blame. People try to blame Trump for the fact that mainstream media is no longer trusted. But no, he didn't cause that to happen. He facilitated it, but he did not cause it. The mainstream media itself caused themselves to lose credibility by the way that they decided to, quote unquote, report and share what they had on Donald Trump. They set themselves up for this failure. Moving on to point number 8. And today's topic, once again, is why MAGA and Donald Trump are terrible for the United States of America. Number 8, expanded and ongoing political division. Now, political division has always been a thing. There's always been this battle between the Democrats and the Republicans, between who controls Congress, between what bills can get passed into law, what is the president going to be okay with or vetoing. There's always been this back and forth battle between different sides politically. This is not new. And but what is new is that even back in the day, let's say pre-Trump, when there was conflict amongst politicians, generally there was still honor amongst thieves. And thieves is a good term to use when we're talking about DC politicians. Yeah, both the Democrats and the Republicans in DC. And I'm talking about the people whose names you know and the people whose names you wouldn't know, and you wouldn't know their faces if they walked past you in a grocery store. These people have been running things to benefit themselves for decades, regardless of what side of the political aisle they are on. The government, and I'm talking to all of you who are listening to this, the government is not designed to help you if you are capable of helping yourself. The government is not here to give to you if you are capable of providing and procuring for yourself. The only people the government helps are either A, people who are working in the government so they can do things in the shadows that you don't even know about, or B, people who are so destitute and unable to care for themselves that they get on what we know as government assistance. And if you don't have a job working in the government, you don't want the government involved in your food, clothing, shelter needs at all in any way. You don't want them involved. The government is not here to help you. It is not here to give to you. The government does not have anything to give. Anything they give you, they took from somebody else. And anybody who thinks that the government is here to help you and it's here to serve you the way it is presently constructed, if you believe that, you probably also still believe in the Easter Bunny and Santa Claus. It's not what the government does. The government used to be, when it was first formulated by the founding fathers, the government was initially formulated with the idea that people in the government were doing a public service. The same way that if you coach your kids' 10-year-old, 10 and under soccer team, you're doing it as a public service. You go to your regular job, you go run your business all day, and on every Saturday from 10 o'clock to 2 o'clock, you coach the youth soccer games. But you're doing it as a public service, as a voluntary service to the community. That's what you're doing. That's the way the government was supposed to be. Every Saturday, let's gather together, talk about things, make decisions, and everybody go back to their regular lives and their regular careers and your regular ways of making money. And I'm not saying it was every Saturday, but get the spirit of my point. The government became a bloated thing where people started collecting full-time salaries just for working in the government. And nowadays you get career politicians who have done nothing other than work in politics their entire lives. They have no other professional skills through which to contribute to society. Hillary Clinton, Joe Biden, Bernie Sanders. What does any of these people have as a professional skill aside from if you couldn't mention politics, what professional skill do any of these people have? They don't have any. They don't have any professional skills. They haven't done anything other than be in politics. And I'm not even mad at them for it. What I am questioning is the system itself and how it got to the point that someone could work in politics as a full-time job and pursue it as a career, not just a job, but a career. How many years has, what's the guy in, man, I forgot the guy's name, Lindsey Graham. How long has he been in politics? How long has Nancy Pelosi been in politics? What other skills do these people have? They weren't forced to develop any other skills because they got this job and they just kept it for 50 years. So this is a governmental issue, that this division and politics that are happening nowadays, again, is where everyone in politics is still a thief. We used to say honor amongst thieves. People in politics are still thieves, but the honor has been removed. And Donald Trump's presence has facilitated this. Again, not caused it, facilitated it. And everything that you saw the Department of Justice do to go after Donald Trump during the Biden administration, that was the stripping of honor amongst thieves. Because everything that Joe Biden tried to do to Donald Trump could have done to Hillary Clinton. He didn't do it. He decided not to do it. He could have went after Hillary. He could have had her investigated. He could have tried to get her incarcerated. He didn't even try to do it because he was just using it as a campaign thing that he was just saying. He wasn't seriously trying to put Hillary Clinton in jail. But it got a lot of people riled up. Joe Biden went and actually tried to get Donald Trump incarcerated. Had Donald Trump not won the 2025 election, he'd be incarcerated probably right now. Actually, I'm pretty sure he'd be in jail right now. And that's what we call lawfare. I did a whole series on lawfare where I explained to you all how lawfare works, what it is, and how people in power just use it against their enemies. This is episode number 31, 91, 92, and 93. I did a 3-part series on this whole thing. Most of the stuff you see on social media and in the mainstream media, these are politicians going at each other, and it's pure theater. I've told you this already. This is just a show. They're doing it to drum up support from their base, the people who are their fans and voters. And the reason why they want to drum up support is so they can keep the donations coming in. Why does that matter? Because they want to make sure everyone knows that the politician is in Washington, D.C., fighting for you and your needs. So any politician making a show of going at Donald Trump, or they got some injunction, or they're going to file these papers, or we're going to look into this and that about Donald Trump, the only reason they're announcing it to you is because they are building their brands by letting you know, they're performatively letting you know what they're doing. Even if what they're doing is paper thin nonsense, it's not going to work. And that's what most of it is. Because again, when you get people emotional, their logical centers of their brains are completely bypassed, and they just do things that don't logically make sense. But when you're emotionally triggered, it doesn't matter if something makes sense. This is where a lot of people with Trump derangement syndrome are at. Everything they see in Trump, they just see red. They just figure out a way to go at it without even thinking, does this even make sense? So all of this stuff about politicians who are living and working in D.C., but they're supposed to be representing New Hampshire or representing New Mexico or representing Colorado, and they say they're up there fighting for your needs. This is all bullshit. No, they're not. They're not fighting for your needs. The only person getting paid, the only person getting played is you. The government is making money. The person who's telling you they're working for you, they're making money. The people they are working with, they're making money. The only person who's getting played is you, if you are naive enough to believe this. So people's attack on Donald Trump, I believe a good amount of them are people who really do not like Donald Trump. I don't think everybody attacking Donald Trump is putting on a show. I think some people really don't like him, and that's what they're doing what they're doing. And there's a reason why they don't like him. I talked about this in my series on why people go crazy over Donald Trump. People lose their minds when Donald Trump is the subject of conversation. The reason is Donald Trump did not pay his dues the way that almost every other politician in Washington, D.C. had to pay dues in order to get to the spot that Donald Trump currently has. He paid no dues and has a spot that most D.C. career politicians will never have. Most D.C. career politicians will never get to the point of being the nominee for a major party ticket ever in their lives, but they do have jobs working in the government, just like Donald Trump. And I believe a good amount of people simply do not like Donald Trump for many reasons that I've already stated. And one of the reasons is he didn't pay his dues to get what everybody else gets. He didn't do a community activism, then become a senator, then run for president. He just went straight to running for president without doing any other things. He skipped steps. In his spot, it's higher than all the other spots because he's the president. All right, it's higher than anything you could be in Congress. And I can see how someone can be annoyed by the presence of Donald Trump, because if you've been already indoctrinated to not like him, you could be really, really bothered by the fact that he's here. While I don't personally blame this on Donald Trump, some people do have negative reactions to him. I understand why people don't like him, and I understand why people blame anything that happens on him, even if he has nothing directly or even indirectly to do with what has taken place. But again, when you have Trump derangement syndrome, logic does not make any sense either. Point number 9. Today's topic, once again, is why MAGA is terrible for the United States of America. Number 9, nationalism over inclusion. This is one of the knocks that people have against Donald Trump, that he's focused all on nationalism, i.e. America first, i.e. make America great again. And instead, people are saying, his detractors are saying he should be focused on inclusion instead of just America and nationalism. If you listen to this show, you have heard me trash the concept of diversity, equity, and inclusion, also known as DEI, specifically the I in that acronym, which stands for inclusion. I'm not really a fan of the concept of inclusion. And let me tell you why. My background is in sports. In the sports world, there is no inclusion. There's no inclusion in sports. Sports is exclusive. And when I say sports, I'm not talking about coaching and managing. I'm talking about playing. Baseball team, football team, hockey team, basketball team, they're all exclusive. The reason why teams are so interesting, one reason why sports teams are capture the interest of people who are not on the team, is because of the fact that not everybody can be on the team. Right. Having a seat at the table is only valuable if you're sitting at a table at which not everybody can sit. And there's certain prerequisites you have to pass in order to even get a seat. All right, that's the beautiful thing about playing a team sport. Again, my background is in sports. There is no inclusion. Sports is exclusive by design because not everybody can be on the team, not everybody can get on the field, and not everybody can jump in the pool. That's why the spots on a roster are as valuable as they are, because they are exclusive by nature. Coaching and management, in the sports world can be inclusive. Again, I'm talking about on the field or on the track, there's no inclusion. In America, where there are many people who, there are a lot of people who want to think, quote unquote, globally. They consider themselves global citizens. They're not just citizens of America, they're global citizens, and they want the whole world to be one big melting pot. And when you're thinking globally, again, whatever the hell that means, I already explained it. They want to include as many people as possible in the American experience by doing what? Increasing immigration and basically opening our borders and no longer enforcing immigration. That's what they want to do. They want to no longer enforce immigration laws and therefore have more and more immigration and bring more and more people from outside the United States into the United States. I've already done a whole series on how America does immigration the wrong way. And this concept I'm not a fan of. Let's just bring more people in just because. Even though I have many friends and many connected people I know who are indeed immigrants, this is something that I would still say. The fact that Donald Trump and MAGA are actually enforcing the border laws, they're not doing anything wrong. As a matter of fact, they're doing something right. They're doing exactly what they're supposed to do, which is enforcing the laws. How could you be mad at the president saying enforce the laws? We have goals, and we have laws, and if laws are not being enforced, standards not being upheld, then the law of entropy guarantees that we get, as a result, disorder and chaos. So what was happening at the border during the end of the Biden administration? There was a lot of disorder and chaos. That's what happened during the Biden administration when it came to immigration. This is not even debatable. I would much rather be called a national of a country, whatever that means, because I'm all about maintaining what we have here in America and enforcing our laws, than to be some inclusive person who is allowing anyone and everyone in basically to jump into our country. And you want to let everyone who is maybe being stopped at the border, you want to let everybody through in some form of fake performative inclusion. I'm just not a fan of any of this. Moving on to point number 10. Today's topic, once again, is why MAGA is terrible for the United States of America. Number 10, deprioritization of feelings and emotions. Now, this one is, of course, completely intangible, and this is more about how people feel about the presence of Donald Trump. You've heard a lot of people talk about this. Kamala Harris talked about it. Even Hillary Clinton touched on it some during her campaign, was that Kamala tried to say, well, we're all about joy. We're all about happiness, where Donald Trump is more about darkness and hate and negativity. And they've tried this. They tried really hard with this one during the entire 2024 campaign, and obviously it failed. People are seeing through the nonsense these days. So everything that I've said in this series of why people go against Donald Trump and MAGA, it boils down to this very point that I'm making right here. Everything I've said here today boils down to this very point that I'm making right here. Politically, one side of things seems to be focused more on feelings and emotions, while the other side is more focused on rationality and logic. This does not mean that either side is always right nor wrong, but you can see exactly what I mean by looking at the candidates from the last election. The political left has become more and more feminized, more emotion-based, and more feelings-based. And this doesn't necessarily mean that there needs to be a woman running for a position for this to happen. Feminized, emotion-based, and feelings-based, these can apply to men just as well as they can apply to women. The political right has been much more logical, rational, and generally just more masculine. Which one do you think I would lean towards, knowing what you know about me and you know about my approach? I think it would be pretty obvious. And I really don't have a choice because, again, I think it would be very, let me say what I just said again. Political right is much more logical, rational, generally more masculine. Which one do you think I would lean towards, knowing what you've heard about me? And again, I don't have a choice because I like to look at things logically and objectively. And when you look at things logically and objectively, it's not a hard decision. At the same time that I'm saying all of this, I understand there are many people out there who are more emotional and feelings-based than they are logical and analytical. They hate Donald Trump. They hate the MAGA movement because it's the antithesis of feelings and emotions, the antithesis of what they're about. So it must be said in this point. That doesn't mean it makes any sense, but that does not mean it is not invalid in the minds of people who hold this opinion. And this is what all of you need to understand. Something making sense in somebody's mind and it making sense in your mind don't necessarily have to match if they're the one who is doing the committing and deciding to do the thing. So it has to be said that even though the idea that Donald Trump is somehow introduced more hate and negativity into the world because it's trying to be logical and objective and discounting feelings and emotions, if that doesn't make any sense, first of all, but it also doesn't mean that people don't believe it. And again, what I'm doing here in the series is telling you what people believe, whether I agree with them or not. All that being said, let's recap today's class, which is part 3 of our ongoing series of why Donald Trump and the MAGA movement are bad for America. Number 7, undermines trust in journalism and the mainstream media. Again, I don't think he did that. I think his presence sped up that process, but I think they were already headed in the wrong direction. Number 8, expanded and ongoing political division. There's always been a thing, political division, but there was honor amongst thieves. Nowadays, a lot of the thieves have no honor. So now people do anything and everything to try to get their political opponents off their square, such as the Joe Biden administration trying to get Donald Trump incarcerated. And yes, Joe Biden could have stopped any of that stuff, and he didn't stop it, and he probably has something to do with a lot of what happened. Number 9, nationalism over inclusion. Again, inclusion is only in spaces where we have space to bring more people in. The United States does not really have space to bring a whole bunch more people in. And when I say space, what I mean is people who are okay with all this immigration, who are already here, and people who are offering jobs that these immigrants can possibly do. It ain't that many jobs out there. There's always going to be no, not always, but often there'll be a deficit of the number of jobs available and the number of people who want a job. There are more people who want a job than there are people who have a job to give. So nationalism over inclusion. If you listen to this show, you've heard me trash DEI, again, especially this concept of inclusion. And again, I come from the sports world where there's no such thing as inclusion. So this is why, one of the biggest reasons why I'm against it, because you can't be included on a sports team if you can't play. And there's a limited number of people who can get in the game. Not everybody gets in the game. It's just the way that it works. And all the Donald Trump side and movement is doing is just making these things more clear for everybody and making people okay with this reality, and also okay to say it and express it in other ways. That's what he's doing. A lot of people hate that, and that's why it's in my points. So this today here concludes our 3-part mini-series, Why MAGA is Terrible for America. Tomorrow we're going to start the flip side of this argument, and I'm going to give you 3 more episodes, Why MAGA is amazing and great for America. That'll be tomorrow. Between now and then, make sure you go to workonyourgameuniversity.com. Make sure you are knowing who we work with, knowing what it is that we do, and letting us know that you're next in line. Go to workonyourgameuniversity.com. Work on your game. Dre all